10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Okay, folks, good evening and welcome to the Blue Heart 1872 podcast. Tonight, folks, I'm joined with Ex Linfield. I'll say the word legend because basically the Blue Men loved them to bits. It's Gary Pebbles coming to us live from Glasgow. Gary, good evening. How are you, sir?
Very well, thank you. Glad to be here. Looking forward to a nice conversation with all the Blue Men out there and anybody else who's tuned in.
Okay, folks, so obviously we're mainly a Rangers podcast with the Gary won't like me saying this, but a good result for Rangers just yesterday at Ibrox, beating St Mirren 4-0. Obviously St Mirren were flying high, but Rangers gave them a bit of a doing yesterday at 4-0. Gary, we'll go straight obviously to your career. Starting out as a young boy, obviously you're a St Mirren fan through and through. You played for the club, and how did you get into football? I mean, not how into football, was St Mirren your first pro club?
Yes, getting into football like most boys my age growing up, there wasn't an awful lot else to do. I was fortunate that my father was a professional footballer with Raith Rovers in the early 60s, and then made a name for himself in the junior game over here.
Okay.
With a number of clubs, he had quite a good reputation and a bit of a profile. So I was always going to end up going down that route. So like most boys, 10, 11, I joined a local boys club, Partick Thistle, fantastic club. Great local club, brought on some fantastic players over the years. Played there for about 5-6 seasons, and everything else, scouts came and watched. Had a trial for Rangers, and that trial day, people like Ian Durant, Hugh Burns, Derek Ferguson. So there's a number of Rangers players in that team that I played. Unfortunately, it didn't materialise, but in between times I was asked to go and train at my local club, St Mirren, and as you say, I was a St Mirren fan. Kind of followed St Mirren with a young boy, through the Alec Ferguson era and beyond, and then you can take a step back because you're playing most Saturday afternoons. But St Mirren were always my team, and I had the opportunity to sign for Motherwell. Tommy McLean was the manager. I got a contract offer. I had the chance to go to Dundee. Archie Knox had a couple of trial games, and he invited me up to sign full time. But I was an apprentice coach painter at the time, and everything else, I always wanted to get a career behind me. So I only maybe a couple of years into that, and I thought, right, I'll see that through. And then Alec Miller was the manager at St Mirren, and he says, look, we're interested in signing you part time. What do you think? And with hindsight, I didn't think twice. I dived straight in and I signed. With hindsight, I could maybe have went to Dundee, or maybe spoke to Tommy McLean. That the offer was via an agent, not an agent, a scout, sorry. But anyway, I signed for St Mirren, absolutely delighted, and I was there for 5 years. Albeit I didn't play a lot of games at St Mirren, but back then, St Mirren had a fantastic team. We had guys like Frank McAvenny, Stevie Clark, Campbell Money, Frank McGarvey, Tony Fitzpatrick. Guys that were well-renowned players in the Scottish Premier League. So it was difficult to break through. But I managed to break through, and I played in, maybe 15, 20 games. Probably my big claim to fame is I played in the third and fourth rounds when we won the Scottish Cup in 1987. So that was a fantastic experience. Your local club, you're playing for them, you're playing in, the third and fourth round, and then you're part of the squad that goes on to win the cup at Hampden, because St Mirren don't win many trophies, and they certainly don't win many Scottish Cups. So that was a fantastic experience. And then from there, I needed first team football. I was getting to that age where I needed to play football. And had a chance to go down to England and try. I actually went down to Doncaster for a while, and it didn't really work out. I came back and I got an offer to go to Partick Thistle. And I weighed it up and I thought, do you know what? I'll take the leap of faith. I'll go there. I'll get playing. It was a step back to maybe go forward, and it worked out. I had a great 4.5 years at Partick Thistle. Was a regular. When I went there, the club were in a low position. Me, alongside a number of other signings, John Lambie, had took the club forward, and we ended up getting promoted into the Premier League. 1992, and I played a part in that. So again, that was another, good experience. And then I had a year in the Premier League. Then I ended up going and loan to Portadown over in Northern Ireland, totally out the blue. I'll never forget it. It was I think it was New Year's Eve, 1992. I got a phone call from Ronnie McFall, basically saying he'd spoke to John Lambie and would I be interested in going on loan. And to be honest, I was taken aback because I'm like, I'd heard of Linfield, I'd heard of Glentoran, but I wasn't really privy to Portadown. What is it? So Ronnie being Ronnie, there was always a few pound in it, so that was always a softener. And I spoke it through with my wife, and I thought, you know what? I've got nothing to lose here. Let's go for it. So I went and had a great 4 months. Unfortunately, Linfield hit Portadown for the league that year. But I had a great 4 months. I played 18 games. I scored a few goals. I scored a good goal against Linfield in the last game of the season at Windsor. And the next minute, I got a phone call again out the blue for Jim Emery, who was a Linfield scout. Cracking guy, lovely guy. He phoned me out the blue. In between times, what's quite interesting, I got a phone call for Dave Hodson. People are maybe on this will maybe know Dave Hodson played with Liverpool, Middlesbrough back in the kind of late 70s, early 80s. He phoned me out the blue and just said, look, I've been given your name with the PFA. I think I can get you a move down to England. And I was like, right, brilliant. And then in between times, Jim Emery phoned me and said, look, I've been watching you for the last 3 months. We would love to take you to Windsor. Would you be interested? And I said, look, well, obviously I'm interested. I'm at that point, I was out of contract and I was getting a free for Partick Thistle, so I had to sort of look at what my options were. Anyway, Linfield flew me over. I met Trevor Anderson up at the 40 Crest, the Conway Hotel up in South Belfast. Met him up there, had a bit of lunch. Trevor sold me his vision and his project and what he wanted to do going forward. And I thought, just sounds good to me. And we discussed terms and conditions. It was full-time football. I was remaining full-time, so that was a win-win. And I thought, you know what? He's won the league. He's in the European Cup. You know yourself. You walk into Windsor Park. It was enticing. That you then knew through the discussion that Linfield were the biggest club. And I thought, right, let's go for it. So I signed a 2-year contract, and then I had 2 great years at the club. So that's how it sort of all began. Moving till I got to Northern Ireland.
Yeah. So, Gary, when you obviously left Partick Thistle, come across to Irish League football, do you consider that a step down from leaving Partick Thistle?
Well, interestingly, if I'm being honest, probably at the time I did, yes. There's no doubt about that, because I suppose like everyone else, if you're moving from England to Scotland, they might see that as a step down if you're going from Scotland to North. But see, once I got there, and, I was actually very, very pleasantly surprised with the standard and the quality. And I talk to people, when I think back to some of the players at the time, you look at Linfield, you think they had Lee Docherty, Noel Bailey, Wes Lamont in goals. Glenavon had the 3 strikers, Ferguson, McBride, and Tony, what was the wing at the other boy?
I know who, not Ray McCoy.
Aye, Rain McCoy, right?
McCoy, yeah.
And then you had other players, Crusaders had several quality players, Cliftonville. So there were some real quality players in and around the league at that time, and big games, good atmosphere, decent crowds. So once I'd sort of got a wee taste for it, I thought, you know what, this is decent. The good thing from my point of view, Gary, is I went there and I became a kind of higher profile player because I was flying in for Scotland. So that was great as well. I was media, back page of the paper, interviews on TV. There was a wee interest, there was a wee buzz. Players were coming in for Scotland. It was seen as an up and coming, product to the Irish League. Money was invested. It was a win-win for me. 2 years full time, European Cup, chance to play in Europe, chance to play at a big club, chance to play at Windsor Park every second week, and probably it was the best decision of my life, to go to Northern Ireland and play football, because I'd had 6 fantastic years, very successful years, won a lot of trophies, played against a lot of good players, played in Europe. fantastic days.
Right, okay. So see, obviously you're flying from Scotland, so obviously you were still classed as a full-time footballer at Linfield. Obviously the players were part-time, but you were... Did you train then? How did your training work? Did you train back with Partick Thistle, or what way did you train?
No, I trained at St Mirren,
You,
so obviously I'm a local boy. So even though I left St Mirren, I've still got close ties there. I'm
yeah,
reasonably well known in and around the town because I'm from Paisley. I played with St Mirren, Partick Thistle, etc. So the manager at the time was Jimmy Bone, who was the assistant manager when St Mirren won the Scottish Cup, and who'd been a player, a very successful player in the kind of early 80s. He was a manager. Campbell Money and Kenny McDowell were the two assistant managers, and they were both teammates of mine.
right, okay.
So I just made a contact. At the time, I lived in the town centre at the time, so it was a 5-minute walk from my house to go to Love Street. So I just made a phone call, and there was absolutely no problem. Yeah, more than happy for you to come in and train. The one stipulation is you turn up every day, and that's what I did. So I trained there. I trained there the whole time I played in Northern Ireland.
Yeah. So say Linfield had a game on a Saturday, you'd have flown in on a Friday evening, is that correct? Or Saturday morning?
Well, it was different, Gary, because Derek Brooks was the well-known secretary at Linfield. He would buy the tickets like 6-8 weeks in advance. So
Right.
sometimes I was flying in maybe on a Friday morning at 8 o'clock. Other times
Right.
I was flying in on a Friday at 7 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Trevor always wanted you in on a Friday, so there was no complications. So you always flew in on a Friday.
Yeah.
Gary Eccles, who, the
Hitman.
famous hitman, I still keep in touch with Gary, an absolute gentleman, one of the best people I ever met over there. He used to come and collect me at the airport, take me to the hotel. We'd go out for lunch, or I would just sit and have dinner,
Yeah.
and then in the morning or the lunchtime, he'd come and collect you and take you to Windsor for the game, and then they'd take you to the airport after the game. So it just depended what the tickets were in terms of. Derek was obviously looking to buy them in advance to try and get them at a better cost.
Yeah. So if you flew out, that's always interesting. If you fly back home to Scotland on a Saturday, say Linfield had a game on a Tuesday night, then did you come back in on a Monday again?
I come back in probably on the Tuesday morning.
Right. So you were in and out all the time, man. Okay.
So you were in 2 or 3 times a week, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So a question here from Ed McCann. Gary, who was the best player you played with, and who was the best Linfield player you played with?
Do you know, that's a good question. When I think of the players, at Portadown, you had people like Stevie Cowan, Marty Russell, Joey Cunningham. At Linfield, Noel Bailey, John Easton, fantastic player. I mean, we had, and I keep in touch with a lot of the Linfield fans through my Twitter account. And when you rhyme off the squad that we had, every player is almost as good as the next player.
Yeah.
But to get back to the question, probably Desi Gorman, maybe Pat Fenlon. They were just two absolute outstanding footballers. I've rhymed off. I mean, I could, Jeff Spears was a great player. Stephen Beattie, underrated, fantastic player. You'd Haylock, absolute goal machine. So they would be Pat Fenlon, Desi Gorman, probably the best I played with at Linfield, and the best I played against. I think you can look no further than the 3 guys up front at Glenavon. I mean, they were, really how Glenavon never won a lot of trophies, because the goals that they scored were just, phenomenal. So, but there was a number of fantastic players back in the day,
Yeah, okay. Obviously, a lot of comments coming in. So here's one for you here. Curry Muncher says, Gary Pebbles, I had him in the old football cards with dodgy chewing gum years ago.
I still forget.
He says at Partick Thistle, so he must have had you in the...
Aye, well, that's right. Moving on, we'll go to the next question.
Okay, so Gary, obviously you signed for the Blues. Am I right? Was your first game Dynamo Tbilisi in Europe?
That might have been the first official game. We played Dynamo Tbilisi, and that was there's a great story behind that whole event, whole game. we travelled to Dublin. We shared a plane with Shelburne, who were playing in Lvov in the Ukraine. We went with Tbilisi Airlines. Now, you're right. You could. I mean, it was honestly, it was Mickey Mouse. There was nothing. It was an absolute recce of plane. We landed in Lvov in the Ukraine. They wouldn't let us leave the airport until they paid for the fuel to refuel it. So I think Linfield had to get a wire transfer of X amount of thousands of US dollars to pay for the fuel. We then fly to Tbilisi, and there's a blowout in the tyre, so we have an emergency landing. We landed in Tbilisi, and at that time, Georgia were in the midst of a civil war, and an American diplomat had been assassinated like 3 days previously. So we got a army escort to the hotel. So as you went through the streets, you can imagine, the Eastern Bloc, the buildings were very dark and grey and what have you. And we actually we went to this hotel, honestly, a nicer hotel I don't think I've ever stayed in. It was absolutely stunning. It was called the Hitachi Palace. It was absolutely beautiful. The outside lifts, and we stayed there and we played the game. The stadium was a traditional old oval shape football stadium, big massive changing rooms, but they were so behind the times in terms of the quality of equipment and the kind of setup of the dressing room. And then we went out, did the warm-up, and then going out for the game. I think there was 60,000 at the game, because we were the first Western team to play there after remember the English teams get banned?
Yeah.
So British teams get banned from Europe for about 5 or 6 years. So I think we were the first Western team to go and play, and the atmosphere was unreal. And honestly, we took the biggest doing I think I've ever had in football that night. They absolutely battered us, and we came away with a 2-1. Wes Lamont had the game of his life. He was absolutely outstanding. He was saving everything, and we came away with a 2-1. And then we took them to Windsor, and we were really, really unlucky. We played really well. Haylock scored a great goal. We drew 1 each, and then we thought we were out.
Yeah.
And then, as you know, they had tried to bribe the referee, and we get back in. So an unbelievable experience. The whole thing with Tbilisi, the travelling to the game, the actual game itself, the flight, the blowout, the army escort. It was an unbelievable experience.
Well, back then, I suppose a lot of Linfield players in Northern Ireland been used to escorts and police and army, so it'd be nothing new to them. So obviously you're back in, Gary, and then it's Copenhagen, am I right? Because I remember going to the game at Windsor Park, beating 3-0 at Windsor.
Yeah. So we get back in. I got a phone call. Gary Eccles phones me. He drops me at the airport. I go home Thursday morning. I got a phone call Thursday night. We're back in Europe. What do you mean we're back in Europe? Dino Tbilisi have bribed the referee, and they've been put out, and we're back in. We're playing FC Copenhagen in 2 weeks' time. And I was like, right. So you're right, Copenhagen came to Windsor. And I mean, I know there's been some fantastic European performances of recent years, but that night at Windsor was probably the best experience in terms of a European perspective that I was ever involved in. We absolutely battered them.
Yeah.
But naively, I think we thought we'd go to Copenhagen and it would be, the job was done. And we went to Copenhagen, 28 minutes in, we're 2-0 down. We get in at half time, and it was basically, right, we need to shut up shop here. We defended for our life. And as you know, or as the story goes, there was 6 minutes injury time played, but there wasn't an injury in the second half. Some people say, it actually was 3 minutes, 40 seconds over. Anyway, the boy gets a free kick, and he absolutely hits it, post his stamp. And as he's celebrating, the referee blows for time. So you can imagine, we're a part-time club, albeit there's a few full-time players. We were just absolutely drained of everything. And they went up the park in the first half of extra time, scored a goal, and then just basically toyed with us to see the game out. But when you think, that Copenhagen drew AC Milan in the next round, and AC Milan, AC Milan with Hullet, Rijkaard, Van Basten, Ancelotti, Maldini come to Windsor to play Linfield. You know, even apart from the experience, just the money that they generated for the club, the profile of the whole event, it would have just been an unbelievable experience if we'd managed to get through, but it wasn't to be.
So I'm going to bring this up here. I just want to talk about obviously the shirt over the head celebration, because I was at this game as well when you scored last minute against Glentoran. So Ian McManus is saying here, used to love the shirt over the head celebration, would do it round the school playground in primary school. So that become your trademark, Gary, the over the head shirt. Yeah. I remember you scoring that goal. It was like you just lost your way and just went nuts just down that touchline.
Well, again, there's a wee kind of story behind that. When I went to Linfield, I started the season really, really well. I mean, people like yourself, the manager FC Copenhagen did a fantastic double-page spread in the Belfast Telegraph talking about Peebles makes Linfield tick. You know, he's the hard as nails. Blah blah blah. We started the season well. I was playing well, and then kind of into probably late September, early October, I started to lose my way a wee bit. I think we went down to Glenavon and we get beat 3-2. And just like I said, before we come on air, Gary, that you were one game away from a crisis at Linfield because the expectation was so high. The expectation on people like myself, Desi Gorman, Gary Haylock, and others, because we were travelling in and we were full time and whatever. So I was starting to get a wee bit of grief. And what happened was, I think we'd maybe lost a couple of games, and Trevor decided to change it. So what does he do? Because I was a kind of versatile player, and I could play a number of positions. I could play midfield, centre half, right back. He puts me in at right back, doesn't he? And he drops Alan Dornan. Now, Alan Dornan had been there for a number of years. You know, the guy's a club legend, cracking guy, fantastic player. And because I was a wee bit out of sorts, Trevor tried to, change it round, put me in there. And then I think the second half, he put me back into midfield. And we were getting beat 1-0. Glentoran, I think it was quarter final of the League Cup or something, something like that. And I scored the goal, and it was just pure emotion, pure release. And whatever happened, the shirt went over the head, and then it just became the kind of signature, and it just kind of went from there. And obviously the supporters loved it, I loved it, and it just kind of became my kind of trademark. So that got me back into my confidence levels went up, started to play well again. We started to pick up. I actually think that might have been the game where we went on the start of the 33-game unbeaten run.
Yeah.
Something like that, So that was a pivotal moment in my kind of Linfield career, particularly in the first season, where things had started really well, had a wee dip, scored that goal, and then things just took off.
Yeah. On that there, Gary, just a random question. What do you think of the standard of the refereeing in the Irish League?
Well, funny you should ask that, because I think I did one of the programme Q&As, and I think one of the questions was, what do you least like about the Irish League? And I think I said referees. Look, see, when you get caught up in the moment, it's easy. I think as you get older and wiser, you can reflect and think, it's not the easiest job in the world, is it? You're in the middle, you've got to make a decision, a split-second decision. You're going to keep half the crowd happy if it's for them, or another half unhappy. Aye, the refereeing probably standard wasn't maybe what I was used to in Scotland, but that's maybe me being a bit critical, because people like Alan Snoddy and try to think of some of the other guys that were there, but they were just doing a job, they were trying their best under difficult circumstances when you've got players in their ear and crowd in their ear, and as I say, you've got to make snap decisions. It's a difficult job.
Yeah. So Ed McCann asks, Gary, do you think the Irish League is better now than it was in your day? As I personally think the players in your days were better.
Well, Edward, I'm glad you've said that, because I would totally agree with you. I mean, when I think, people from my era, some of the names just rhyme off your tongue. When we're talking about Cowan and Ferguson and, McBride and McCoy and McAllister and, people like that. Yeah, I would agree. I think there was more personalities, more characters. There was good atmosphere. Then you didn't, like I said, now you can't really tackle anybody or you're booked or there's a foul. Back then you could just really get in about it, and you had to be aware of people round about. You had to be cute. You had to look after yourself. Good ding dongs. There was obviously the Linfield Cliftonville scenario where the Cliftonville fans had to be almost herded into the stadium and everything that went with that. The Linfield Glentoran, there was two teams who were and many times eeksy peeksy over that kind of period, but Linfield then get the upper hand and Glentoran. So I would agree, but I suppose I'm going to say that because that was my era, and I felt it was a good standard of football at the time. I don't see a lot of Irish League. I've watched a few games on TV. If I'm going to be honest, is the standard as good? I wouldn't think so.
Yeah, is that surprising, Gary? Considering I think there must be about 4 of the teams now off, like Linfield's full time, Glentoran's full time, Larne's full time. I think Crusaders are full time as well. Do you not think that it should be going the other way? The standards should be getting better.
Well, you'd like to think so, but I think just with society in general, Gary, is kids have got so much more options. There's rugby's quite high profile. Even people love cricket, people love different sports. Back when I was young, football was the be all and end all. So when you go back, you didn't have the internet back in the 90s.
Yeah.
You didn't have kids are interested in playing PlayStation games, and there's maybe not as much focus on it. I don't know in terms of locally if there's enough coverage in terms of the press and the TV, and I don't know, but back then it just felt like football was a real big part of kind of Northern Irish life, whether it was, the Troubles were going and that was a release.
Yeah.
And because the Troubles are there now that people are doing different things, and, I don't know, but...
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so Curry Muncher says, does Gary think a younger him would fit into today's style of football?
Well, no, absolutely. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and blow my trumpet, but I think anybody who seen me play knew. I wasn't all just about, putting the foot in and, tackling. I could score a goal, I could make a pass, I could, I was a good header. I wasn't the quickest. I had a good awareness about me. I understood the game, and I knew how to play the game. I knew how to play different positions. So I think I'd be a good box-to-box midfield player. I think I'd still score goals. It'd been interesting if I was full-time and I was living in Northern Ireland, because it was quite difficult because I wasn't training with the players. So I wasn't there on a Monday night or a Thursday night, maybe looking at shape or structure of play or discussing. I was basically just coming in, straight to the game, playing. So there was added complications there. But if I was full-time at Linfield or one of the other full-time clubs now, then you're training every day, you're living it, breathing it, you're all in it together, then I think it'd be much easier. But as the previous question, I would back myself to get into the Linfield team today, to be honest.
Yeah. Okay. So obviously, Gary, it was the treble at Linfield. I'm right? You won the treble at Linfield?
Yeah, won the treble. I think we won the Budweiser Cup. It wasn't long ago, Gary. I looked up the stats that season. I think we shared the Community Shield at the beginning of the season. We got to 2 semi-finals and we won 4 trophies. So isn't that a bad record? Now, I know I think 2006 Linfield won the clean sweep, but then I think they were only playing for maybe 4 trophies, and then we were playing for 7. And I think we shared 1, won 4, and we got to 2 semi-finals of the other. So overall, it was an unbelievable season. But the treble, from a personal point of view, was probably the best 10 days of my football career. We went to Portadown. Portadown, I think, had been to Ballymena the week before, and I think if they'd won, they only needed one other victory before the end of the season to win the league. They lost. We went to Shamrock Park. If they beat us, that would have put us out of it. We beat them 2-0. We then go to Newry on the Thursday night, and if we beat Newry, it's in our hands. We draw. So, you turn up on the Saturday, and you know that you need Portadown and Glenavon to draw, and we need to beat Glentoran.
Yeah.
So we beat Glentoran, and then we know what happened with Portadown and Glenavon. Then I think we play. I think the Tuesday night. So we play Portadown on the Saturday. We play Coleraine in the League Cup final on the Tuesday night at the Oval. We beat them 2-0. I scored what would be the winning goal, the first goal. I get man of the match. We play Newry on the Thursday night. We draw one each. So we went for a high to a kind of low. We go on the Saturday. We beat Glentoran 2-0, and then we win the league. So we're all at a high again. Then we've got a week rest, recovery, build up to the Irish Cup final to win the treble, and we go out and we do a number one Bangor, who were a decent side, but I don't think nobody was beating us that day. The momentum was with us the whole. As I said, we went 33 games unbeaten. We were absolutely flying, and once we'd won the league, nobody was beating us in the Irish Cup final. And I scored the winning goal and I get man of the match. So from a personal perspective, that 10 days was just unbelievable,
Yeah. Okay, so that's your first season, and you're in the second season at Linfield, right? Yeah?
Yep.
But a lot of injury that season?
Well, what happened is I picked up Achilles tendonitis, and it was just niggling. It was one of the injuries. And again, hindsight's a great thing. But Trevor was always on at me, I need you to play, I need you to play, I need you to play. And I was saying, I need about a month here to try and get this right. No, just playing a Saturday, rest during the week. But the build of me, I needed to train. I needed to. If I wasn't training, my fitness levels weren't at the same level as they should have been. So overall, that season, I scored 16 goals that year, and I had a big contribution in the Irish Cup final for Haylock to score the second goal, and it was really disappointing the way it finished. But yeah, it was throughout the course of the year. I mean, I'll give you an example. We played Ards in the County Antrim Shield semi-final at Ards, and we beat them 4-3, and I scored twice. Didn't play particularly well, scored twice. And eventually I went to Trevor and I says, look, I need a rest. He's like, right, okay, I hear you. He says, right, go and get physio, work on your fitness, and, we'll see you in 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I think 10 days later he phoned me. I think we lost the next game, and he phoned me and says, I need you to play. So I then came out and we played, that might have been the quarter final, and I think we played Cliftonville. He wanted me back for the semi-final. We played Cliftonville at Windsor, and we beat them 3-2. And again, my Achilles I would play the game, and then I'd have to rest for 3 or 4 days, and then I was able to try and get it going again, and then play the game. And that's the way my season went. But Trevor never gave me the rest and recovery that I needed. I mean, obviously I was keen to play because that's just my personality. But then when we got to the end of the season, 16 goals, we retained the Irish Cup. We didn't have a great campaign in the league, I will admit that. I don't think, recruitment-wise, I don't think we bought in the players that we probably should have to keep us at that level and maybe take us to the next level. And we might have, through the course of the season, suffered with some injuries. I can't really remember. But to get the phone call to say that they were going to put me in the transfer list and give me the reason that the money that was costing to pay my wages and fly me in and hotels and then go and sign 2 Scottish boys, it was a bit naughty. And I mean, I could say I could have the last laugh because obviously I went to Portadown and we won the league. And anybody who was following Linfield, closely at that time, every time I played Linfield, I scored. I scored in a final. I scored a penalty in the penalty shootout. I scored the winning penalty in the quarter-final of a cup. I scored in a league game. And to be fair, the Linfield fans were singing my name as loud than I was.
When you were playing for
them? Just because I think they recognised that the club probably let me down, because I played that season through injury and I probably deserved certainly another contract. But it didn't end well because they offered me a contract, basically a basic contract, and then were being a bit difficult trying to let me go because I had Glentoran, Coleraine, Glenavon, Bangor, Portadown, all interested in signing me. I was getting phone calls. We'd love to sign you, but we'd go to a tribunal and, we can't take the chance. And then Ronnie McFall took the leap of faith and went to tribunal and had to pay, I think, £22,000 or something like that for me. And I went to Portadown. But it was a bit bittersweet because I had 2 great years, loved it. And then I went to Portadown. I had a fantastic year at Portadown. We won the league. We won the Ulster Cup. We won the League Cup. So, in Linfield, I think then went on and had 2 or 3 disappointing years before David Jeffrey came in.
Yeah. So obviously, what you needed, Gary, was you needed obviously a good 46 weeks out, not playing at all, get your Achilles right. Obviously, I mean, probably in this day and age it wouldn't happen because you just wouldn't be playing. You'd be having that rest. But Trevor obviously thought he needed you. Well, he did need you. It's not he didn't think he knew he needed you.
Well, I think hindsight's a great thing, Gary. But I think even back then, I probably get brought in to replace Lee Docherty, who was a fantastic player and a fantastic servant. But ironically, Lee Docherty went on to then have 4 or 5 fantastic years at Glenavon. But Linfield seemed to have this policy. I don't think it was a management policy in terms of the manager or the coaches. I think it was a management, as in the board and the directors, that when you got to 30, they only ever offered you a year's contract and they looked to try and move you on. But that's a total myth because look at Jamie Mulgrew at the moment.
I know, he's still going.
He's still one of the best players in the league, and he said a career probably only bettered by Noel Bailey, and he's now in his mid-late 30s. So I think that was the wrong approach to take because Lee Docherty still had a lot to offer. And if I had got a good pre-season under my belt, which I did do because I got a rest, got a good pre-season, I went to Portadown, and then we went and won the league at Portadown. So that sort of evidence that, when you get to a certain age, you're no longer over the hill, you've still got something to offer.
Yeah, it was obviously Linfield's loss. So obviously you went on to Portadown, won the league at Portadown. And then after that, Gary, it was Newry, am I right? Newry?
Went to Newry. Again, the irony of the whole thing is it's mental because Trevor Anderson, who, I had a great relationship with Trevor. I think, I did as well by Trevor as Trevor did by me when he signed me for Linfield. But he went to Newry, as you know. I mean, you don't go for Linfield manager to Newry Town director of football unless somebody's lining your pockets with lots of money. So we know that he went to Newry and was given a ton of money. And next minute, I had obviously the kind of issues at Portadown at the tail end of my Portadown career, and they put me on the transfer list. And Newry came in and took me to a tribunal, and I don't know, they paid I think £11,000-12,000 for me, and I signed a 2-year full-time contract, and Trevor was the manager. Which was quite crazy given 2 years previously he's part of the decision to move me on.
Move you on now, Newry, right? Okay. Obviously, Gary, we were chatting before we come online live. You back at Windsor much, or you been back?
Well, I was back a few years ago. I went over with my wife and another couple of friends, and as I said to you, Gary, the way that I get treated, the way that the guys respond to me on Twitter, it's absolutely fantastic. I think it's testament, probably, particularly that year, the 2 years I was there. They certainly recognise that I gave my all to the club and tried my best and contributed to some good times. So if I go back, and I have been back, unbelievable. I get well looked after. I get tickets for the director's box. I get invited on to do some co-commentary. Or, go and present man of the match prizes. And as I said to you, the Linfield Ravens Supporters Club guys were absolutely outstanding. They invited me over, put me up in the hotel. We had a kind of 25-year anniversary, the treble winning year. Looked after me very, very well. Lifted and laid me, to be honest. I went to their box for one of the games, had a great day, few beers, and it was just fantastic. So, anytime I go back, I'm welcomed with open arms, and I get very well looked after.
Yeah, obviously you still keep an eye on the Irish League. Obviously Linfield drew a co-reign yesterday. I think Linfield's sitting sixth now. Probably not where Linfield want to be, but big game come this Friday against Glentoran. They've got to win that game, Gary.
Well, absolutely. As I said earlier, Linfield are only 1 or 2 games away from a crisis, and I know, and I've been obviously keep a close eye on things through my Twitter account and obviously on the media. And you're right, they've not started. I know they get beat with Carrick and a disappointing night in Europe. I was watching the game. It was just one of the unbelievable moments. You think you get through, you get into Europa Conference League, you set up the club for the next 2-3 years with the money that you can make. That had quite clearly that had an impact, trying to come back through that, and I've had a couple of disappointing results. But look, David Healy's been here before. He's a big boy. He's played the game a long time. He's got a fantastic record at Linfield. I think he's won 4 titles in the last 5 years, numerous other competitions. Linfield will not be far away, but I do agree with you. Friday night's a massive game. It's always a massive game against Glentoran, but given the way they've started, they're beating everybody all around them comfortably, scoring goals, and they're sitting top of the league. They definitely can't lose again. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, but come Friday night, Gary, say Linfield get 3 points, it just turns right round again. Yeah,
absolutely. That's the way the Irish League is. And the good thing is, Gary, that keep an eye on it. Look at Larne. There's a guy, Kenny Bruce, invested hundreds of thousands, millions, and Larne are now full time, and they're competing. You've got Coleraine competing. Cliftonville. Look at Cliftonville last year. They went totally with Linfield. Fantastic end to the season, and Linfield just came out on top. You've got Crusaders are always a hard club to beat. You've got Portadown are struggling. Glenavon are probably struggling, but there's a good 4, 5, 6 teams that are all in and around there, and it's great for the Irish League. Full-time football, hopefully better coverage. It can only be a good thing. But Linfield, they need to get some form of result on Friday night.
Yeah. So obviously, Gary, when you're at Linfield, or even when you're just not just Linfield, when you're playing the Irish League, obviously, you never shirked a tackle before. You like to get stuck in. Is there any players you played against in the Irish League who used to think, oh, fuck, here we go again, it's going to be a battle?
Well, I always remember when I first went, my very first game in the Irish League was away to Crusaders. And, as everybody knows, Big Kirk Hunter was at that time. I think prior to me going, I think he'd maybe broke somebody's ankle. I think he'd broke somebody's leg. He'd been sent off 2 or 3 times. So he had a reputation. And I went there with, the usual, hard man midfielder, Gary Pebbles, signs and loan to the Ports, a hard tackle, whatever. But I have to say, look, you're right, I didn't shirk a tackle, he didn't shirk a tackle, but I didn't get the sense that he was out to get me. I certainly wasn't out to get him. It was about playing. And at the end of the game, you'd shake hands and you'd move on. But you had other, tussles with, Paddy McAllister at Cliftonville Coleraine. He was a hardy boy. You'd be Raymond Morrison at Glentoran. He's 5'6", but get wired in. So there's loads of players back then that could look after themselves and put themselves about. So, but I didn't find that anybody was out to get me, and I certainly wasn't out to get anybody. You just played the game, and at the end, you shook hands and you moved on.
Yeah, okay. You still keep in touch with any of the Linfield or ex-Irish League boys you played with?
No, well, Stuart McLean. I was back in touch with Stuart last year. I'd lost touch with him, and I found him via Twitter, and I messaged him, and we met up for a coffee. So we send a wee message back and forth. Pat Fenlon back and forth again. If I'm looking to come over, he'll sort me out with tickets. Gary Eccles, I keep in touch with him. But other than that, football's a funny profession, because you go and you play with a team for 2 or 3 years and you make all these friends, and then you move to another team and then you start socialising, engaging and interacting with players, and then you move on to the next club, and then likes of me coming back to Scotland,
Yeah.
I'm not really seen. I kept in touch back and forth with Wes Lamont, John Easton. John Easton and his wife Kathy were brilliant with me because I used to go there probably into my second year on a Friday night and stay overnight with them rather than stay in a hotel.
Yeah.
So they were fantastic. I met John when I was over for the anniversary night, and he said, "Look, next time you're over, give us a shout, and we'll go out and get a few drinks." So don't keep in touch with regularly, but we touch base, and if I go over and I see any of them, you always get a good catch up.
Good. And what are you up to these days, Gary? You still involved in football, or are you?
No, I'm not involved in football. I was involved with a wee local junior team with a chap called Sammy Johnson, who played over at Glenavon and Coleraine. But I go and see St Mirren. I go to hospitality quite a lot. I get invited to hospitality, so I go there most home games, and sometimes go to the odd away game, particularly if they're playing in the cup. But I'm not involved directly. My time's taken up Monday to Friday with my work, and at the weekends, I'm just at the age now where I'm living life and enjoying myself.
Yeah. Do you miss it, Guy?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's nothing better than your playing days. It's fantastic. But I was fortunate, Gary, that prior to me stopping playing football, I'd already one eye on what I was going to do when I retired. So I'd already started making new plans. So I went and get some education, some qualifications, and then went into residential childcare, working with young people at risk and a residential school. And I've just kind of built myself up there I'm now kind of head of operations in a secure unit. So I wasn't one of the players who was precious about staying in the game and becoming a manager or a coach. If it happened, it happened. What I will say, if I stayed in Northern Ireland, which I think is probably worth touching on, when I went there, I should have moved there lock, stock and barrel, bought property, lived there, and then I'd be. I think if I was over there, I'd be involved in some capacity, whether it be through the media, through co-commentating or match analysis or reporting, or I'd be coaching and managing or something like that. I think most players, maybe probably the CV I had with the clubs that I played with, and the trophies that I won and the goals that I scored, I'd probably get an opportunity somewhere. And it would be up to me to take that opportunity. I'll ask some of the guys that are coaching and managing it now, and then I would have built up a kind of probably a circle of people who'd be in the game that you might end up being assistant manager or a coach or working in development or something. So if I lived in Northern Ireland, I think I would be involved, but back in Scotland, no.
Okay. Quick question, because it's obviously a Portadown fan saying, did you stay at the Seagull while at Portadown?
Yes.
Obviously, hotel, is it? Yeah, ticket?
Yeah, that was the Seagull Hotel. Yeah, you always stayed there. Yeah,
that's where you stayed. So if somebody made you an offer, Gary, to go back to the Irish League and do something, would you take it?
To be honest, it need to be a good offer because I've got a really good job.
Yeah.
So, and with all due respect, I'm not so sure that the Irish League are going to pay the salary that I'm currently earning. If I was able to retire and had the opportunity to go over, I think I'd seriously consider it. Now, as I said, when I went over the first time, I got a call from Joel Taggart at the BBC, and I did a wee bit of co-commentary in the Linfield Portadown game, and it got very well received. So that's something that would be interest me. While I've been over here, I've done bits and bobs for St Mirren TV and some co-commentary on St Mirren games, and again that's been very well received as well. So there's opportunities there, and I sometimes go back to like a Partick Thistle and I'll do a Q&A, or I'll go to a hospitality day, I'll get invited up. So I'm involved in some wee bits and bobs, but nothing concrete.
Yeah. And obviously, I know, still love your scooters?
Oh, aye.
Hey?
I'm an old mod at heart. Yeah, I've got a 1964 Vespa. I love the mod scene, the kind of revival scene for the late 70s, early 80s. I was over at the Northern Ireland Scooter Weekend, mod weekend, about 6-7 years ago in Bangor, met a few Linfield fans who were like very surprised to see me, but had a great catch up, great night. I love the mod scene. I love the style. You know, I love the suits. You know, the music. I love it all.
Good. Okay, Gary. Well, thank you so much. That's 50 minutes of your time for giving us up. There you are, Bill McMahon. I know Bill well. He said just bringing back memories of a great Linfield team and touching on some great matches. Gary, you've give your time up tonight first. I know it's late on a Sunday evening. I know you've been a busy man all weekend, but we got you here in the end. So thank you very much for coming on, mate.
No bother. Just wanted to a wee mention to,
yeah.
You know, you're asking the question about obviously Linfield's got that connection with Rangers, and there's a couple of boys I met on holiday away back in the late 80s who are Rangers daft and Chelsea daft and Linfield daft.
Right.
They became very good friends of mine, and we keep in touch on a regular basis. So I just want to give them a wee shout out. Poe and wee Grant, Diamond guys and massive Rangers fans and massive Linfield Chelsea fans. So just a wee shout out to them. But no, Gary, thanks very much for the invite. I really enjoy talking about my time in the Irish League. It brings back some great memories, and and it's great. The guys come in with questions and talking about some of the games. So thanks very much.
Yeah, and thanks, Gary. If you stay on, I'll come back on to you then. Is that okay?
No problem.
You said, all right, Gary. Thanks very much, man. Thank you.
Cheers, then.
Okay, folks, there you have it. Gary Pebbles, great player for Linfield and for Portadown in the Irish League. Good guy, obviously running late tonight, but we still managed to get him on here. So, folks, thanks for joining us. We're back on Friday night, the podcast, obviously the pre-match for the Motherwell game. I'm hoping to have a few other ex-Linfield players coming on soon as well. So, we'll see you then. Thanks, folks, for watching.